Chapter 1. The Red Veil of Zeost. I was once a voice, then an echo. Now I am the breath between your thoughts. You seek sleep, but you have come to the altar of memory. In the forgotten folds of galactic time, before the Republic dared map the outer rim, Zeost pulsed like a wound in the night. The planet was not born, it was bled into being. Its skies were crimson, not by atmosphere, but by memory. Soaked with rituals the Force itself has tried to forget. This is the beginning, not of time, but of corruption. They called it the Red Veil, whispered in the dead language of the Sith Eternal. It was no veil in the common sense, no cloth nor barrier. It was a ritual, etched in agony, that allowed the transference of life through pain and spirit through violence. Only once did the ritual ever fully complete, and the galaxy bent around it. The first to perform the Red Veil was not named in holocrons. His name was removed. Deliberately, the Sith feared what he had become, even as they revered his result. He was not a Sith Lord. He was the ritual incarnate, through the blood of 100 prisoners. He forged a gate not of space, but of flesh. He stepped through them, one by one, absorbing lives like droplets through skin. They did not die, they dissolved. What remained of them screamed in his marrow. The Force itself recoiled, but not before it took notice. Zeost trembled that day. Storms spun backwards. Beasts walked into flame. And for 3 days the planet had no sound, only heartbeat. You must understand, this was not a feat of power, but of surrender. The Red Veil demanded the loss of self. Not death, worse, erasure. The practitioner would lose his name, form, history, becoming a vessel of other people's suffering. He became many. He became silence. He became Zeost. For centuries, the ritual was locked away, carved not into stone, but into living holocrons, creatures molded by Sith alchemy, chained in eternal sleep to prevent the chant from ever being spoken again. But the TS are creatures of hunger, and hunger always forgets fear. When Darth Nithra uncovered the Red Veil during the 9th Purge, she thought herself powerful enough to wield it. She was wrong. Her body split in 7 forms mid-ritual, each containing a part of her consciousness. 6 died screaming. The 7th became a whisper that lives in Zeost's winds even now. Some say she sings the names of those she loved. Others say she has no mouth but bleeds words through the sky. I was there. I was not physical. I was already becoming. I hovered just beyond the edge of memory, watching the ritual complete itself. And when it ended, Zeost grew quiet once more. But the quiet was never peaceful. It was listening. Know this. The Red Veil was not just a ritual of power. It was a test. The Force, both light and dark, responds to sacrifice. But the dark side rewards obedience without question. Those who surrender to the Red Veil become not lords, but portals, vessels through which the Force expresses its oldest wounds. Some Jedi who wandered Zeost centuries later went mad within hours. One carved the veil into his skin and vanished. One stayed behind, swearing he heard his mother's voice from the stone. He never had a mother. He was clone-birthed, and yet the voice still called him home. Do you see now? The Red Veil did not end. It only changed shape. Even now, galaxy breathes it in. Slowly, silently, like fog through a dying temple. And one day, you too will whisper words not your own. Sleep now, listener, but remember, some rituals dream through you. Chapter 2. Voices beneath the Corbin tombs, beneath stone, beneath time, beneath even death, they wait, and they remember. Korriban, sacred graveyard of the Sith, does not sleep. Its surface is scarred with tombs of long-dead lords, but death is no boundary here. The sand itself trembles with the weight of forgotten names. It is said that on the coldest nights, when the moons of Horus align just so, the tombs open not by stone, but by memory, and the voices begin to speak. No voice is ever alone. This chapter is not about a tomb. It is about the ritual that unlocks them all. They called it blood binding. It was not written. It was breathed into existence. A whispered incantation passed from Sith master to apprentice. Always in darkness, always in secret. It was said that those who learned it could speak with any Sith spirit entombed beneath Korriban and receive answers. But they did not know. The ritual did not connect speaker to spirit. It replaced one with the other. The first to try was Darth Vener. Arrogant, young, brilliant. He sought knowledge beyond his era and believed no shade could outwit his will. He performed blood binding inside the crypt of Darth Valona, Lord whose cruelty could silence suns. The ritual worked too well. At first, Vener heard the whispers. Questions, promises, secrets only a tomb could keep. Then came the dreams. Then came the echoes inside his own voice. Within a cycle, his followers noticed a change not just in speech, but in memory. He no longer recalled his name. He answered to Valen. The ritual had succeeded. The soul of the dead had replaced the soul of the living. But what happened to Vener? He still screams from within. Every time Valen speaks, Vener's voice cries through the cracks of the tomb walls. Some Sith claim to hear it and go mad. Others say they never hear it at all. That's worse. Blood binding became forbidden. But that never stopped the desperate. One Sith cult, the Pale Choir, used it en masse. One by one, they became walking shells for the spirits of ancient warlords. For a time, Korriban bloomed again. Ritual fires, echoed chants, armored forms walking the red sands, speaking in voices that belonged to centuries past. Then came the collapse. The tombs began opening on their own. The ritual no longer needed a speaker. The dead remembered how to return. Some came without names, some without eyes. One came back without a body, just a voice trapped in stone that still hovers in the crypt of Darth Anakar, whispering, "I never left." Jedi scholars say the tombs are haunted. But they are not haunted. They are inhabited. Blood binding was not just a ritual. It was a key, and the door has not been shut since. Many Jedi who ventured into the tombs returned with shaking hands, their minds frayed. One, a Mirialan Padawan, carved spirals into her palms and said, "They're trying to come through me now." She was placed in statesize. She still hums in her sleep. There is no silence beneath Korriban, only waiting, only hunger, and the more who remember the blood binding. The closer they come to walking free again. So sleep, acolyte. But know this, if your dreams feel crowded tonight, you have already heard the first whisper. Chapter 3. The Ritual of the Shattered Moon. Not all wars are fought with armies. Some are fought with silence and ended with the scream of a moon. There once was a moon known only by its breath-soft winds across obsidian cliffs, drifting over silent oceans of dust. It had no name in modern galactic records, but in Sith scripture, it was called Valthazuan, the cradle that should not sing. It orbited a gas giant near the Yavin system. Now, it orbits nothing, because it no longer exists. The ritual of the shattered moon was never meant to be used. It was an ancient Sith convergence, right? Designed not to destroy, but to manipulate the pull of gravity through raw force alignment. In theory, it could collapse warships. In practice, it unmade a moon. It began with 13 Sith Lords, each stationed in harmonic convergence across Valthazuan's fault lines. Beneath the surface, Force crystals harvested from Ilum had been planted warped by Sith alchemy until they screamed. Under sunlight, when the ritual began, no one heard anything. No chant, no thunder. Only the sudden, violent reversal of breath, like the moon itself inhaled for the last time. Then silence. Then fracture. Valthazuan did not explode. It folded. Inward, the oceans rose into the sky. The cliffs peeled like skin. And for 7 seconds, the moon became a sphere of crimson light suspended before collapsing into black dust that still hovers in orbit. Witnesses report. Seeing faces in the dust cloud, they still smile. Only one Sith survived. Her name is lost. But her title remains, the Gravity Wound. She was found orbiting the gas giant in a sphere of static airskin flayed. Eyes white, humming a song no one remembered teaching her. She spoke a single phrase before vanishing. The galaxy is just another moon waiting to break. Jedi archivists believed this was a weapon. It was not. It was a warning. The Force itself rebelled against the ritual. Time ran slower in that system. For days, holocrons refused to activate. Children born during the aftermath were all blind in one eye, the same eye. Always the left. The Sith never performed the ritual again. They didn't need to. Its echo did the work for them. Attempted deep beneath Dramond Kaz, inside a black citadel that has no windows, no name, and no echo. Even the stone resists being remembered. The ritual's purpose: to create a living holocron, a vessel of Sith knowledge not made of crystal, but of skin and soul. It required 2 subjects, 1 willing spirit, full of ancient Force knowledge, 1 breathing body. Emptied of identity, the Sith believed that merging the 2 would create the perfect apprentice. But what they made was far from perfect. The first subject was Darth Charoon, a ghost of immense age and unreadable cruelty. The second was a mute child, stolen from an Outer Rim mining colony never named, never taught, never touched by compassion. The Crimson Union began under a blood moon, with Sith chanting from circular pylons, each sacrificing a piece of their own memories to ignite the fusion. As the ghost descended, the child's body convulsed in pain, but in resistance. Something was wrong. The child screamed not aloud, but into the Force itself, and the Force heard. The result was not one being. It was 2 voices in one skull, warring eternally. The child's innocence fought Cherowin's hatred with such ferocity that the entire citadel collapsed inward for 1 hour. Time folded. Lights dimmed, and the walls bled. Literally. Stone turned to meat. Doors wept. And some say a shadow in the shape of a child still walks the lower halls. They called the creature Belon, Arak. It spoke only in riddles. Its eyes changed color mid-sentence. One hand healed. The other killed. It could not choose who it was. The Sith called it a failure. But Velinaric smiled, even as it was chained. It said, "I am not failure. I am both outcomes." After Velinaric escaped how, no one knows. The ritual was sealed away, but not before others tried. Each attempt yielded worse. Results: 1 subject's bones grew outward. Like armor, he screamed in every known language, even ones he'd never learned. Another began whispering the deaths of those around him before they happened. A third fused with 2 spirits and burned alive from the inside, laughing until there was nothing left. And yet, Sith holocrons whisper of a perfect fusion. A being neither Sith nor Jedi. One who walks galaxies in silence. One who remembers everything and denies nothing. They say this being will awaken soon. They say it already walks in dreams. The Crimson Union is forbidden now, but not because it fails, because it sometimes succeeds. So if you hear a voice inside your thoughts tonight, and it sounds like you, but is not you, then perhaps the ritual has already begun. Chapter 5. The mirror of 1,000 truths. To see the future is a burden. To see all futures is annihilation. Deep beneath the hollow catacombs of Moraband, behind a sealed vault etched in forgotten runes, there lies a relic that breathes. It is not a mirror in the common sense. It does not reflect your face. It reflects what you could have been. It is called the Mirror of 1,000 Truths, forged by Darth Nihil during the Great Splintering. This relic is said to be the only Sith artifact that can fracture the Force's future sight, splintering it into thousands of parallel timelines. It was not meant to show a path. It was built to destroy certainty. When Darth Nihil first gazed into the mirror, he fell silent for 7 days. On the 8th, he killed his entire council, burned his temple, and carved a symbol into his chest that no one had seen before. Since then, he whispered, I was right in none of them. He died smiling. But some say that even now, his body twitches in perfect rhythm. As if trapped in a loop, he cannot escape. The ritual surrounding the mirror is known as the thousandfold glimpse. To perform it, the seeker must offer one memory they love and one they fear in return. The mirror reveals all versions of themselves, from Sith Lord to servant, traitor to savior, and even versions that never existed. But the human mind is not meant for such multitudes. Records tell of Jedi who went blind after a single glance. One Padawan spoke with voices not his own for the rest of his life, arguing with future selves that hadn't happened. Another fell in love with a version of herself she had never been on, refused to return. She is still kneeling before the mirror 20 years later, alive but utterly still. The mirror does not just show futures. It chooses one for you. Every time it is used, reality bends. A small event shifts. A word changes. A death is delayed or accelerated. Time becomes uncertain. Some say the mirror is not a creation at all, but a being, a sliver of the Force's raw consciousness, encased in obsidian and bound by ritual to never speak. So instead, it shows, and each glimpse is a scream. One Sith Lord, Darth Varan, tempted to shatter the mirror. He struck it with his saber. The blade passed through. Then he vanished, erased from every holocron, from every mind, from history itself. Only his shadow remains burned on the wall. So ask yourself, listener, when you dream of the life you could have had, when you feel memories that are not yours, when you walk into a room and feel you've done so before, perhaps the mirror has already glanced at you. Sleep now. But remember, the future does not come for you. It waits for you to look back. Chapter 6. When the stars bled, the stars are not constant. They live, they suffer. And when touched by darkness, they bleed. There was once a region of space, unmapped and untouched, between the galactic arms of Atraxia and the void spine. In this cold, forgotten corridor, stars pulsed with unnatural rhythm, red where they should have been white, dim where they should have burned bright. The Force did not flow here. It quivered. This was the aftermath of a ritual known only in whispered fragments, the bleeding of the constellations. It began with a Sith sect called the Ether Choir, a gathering of Force astronomers and cosmic warlocks who believed the stars were ancient beings, conscious, dreaming, and capable of sorrow. Their goal? To create a scream powerful enough to wake them, using a massive lattice of kyber crystals strung through abandoned satellites. They amplified a Sith ritual called the harmonic rend, a chant so low it could only be felt by celestial bodies themselves. For 13 days, they chanted from orbit around the star cluster Arras-Tune. On the 14th day, the stars responded. They began to dim. Astronomers called it a solar anomaly. The Sith called it success. One star collapsed into itself, becoming a black sphere that wept solar winds. Another began spinning backward, reversing time around it. 4. a 0.3 parsec radius. Entire species evolved, then devolved in the blink of a cycle. And at the heart of it all, a sound was heard, a low moan. Carried not by air or space, but by memory, the force rippled, not like water. Like flesh, Jedi Masters from the Outer Rim reported nightmares of stars speaking to them. One awoke with ash in his lungs. Another awoke with starlight pouring from his eyes. He died with a smile and no voice. Holocrons malfunctioned. Children, born near the region, glowed faintly under moonlight. Plants bloomed in total darkness. The galaxy had been rewritten in whispers and the ether choir. They vanished, but their transmissions did not. A final signal was recovered by a Jedi deep listener. It contained only this: we were not meant to touch the sky. It was already awake, and now it watches. Some believe the stars are now ... infected, that what bled from them was not light, but a kind of force corruption, invisible, incurable, irreversible. A Jedi fleet sent to investigate never returned. Only a single droid made it back. It had been stripped of all data. But its optical lens burned with residual heat, as if it had been looking at something ... alive. So beware. Listener, when you look at the stars tonight, if they seem dimmer than usual, if they flicker in unfamiliar rhythm ... do not wish upon them, for they no longer dream. They remember, and now they bleed for you. Chapter 7. The heart that spoke in flame. There are those who burn for truth, and those who burn to become it. On the scorched plateaus of Telethon, a world lost to official star maps, there once stood a monolithic pyre-black stone reaching into the ash sky. It had no name, no symbols, no doors. It was not a temple. It was a mouth, and through that mouth, and through that mouth, 1,000 Sith zealots cast themselves into flame, not to die, but to become part of the ritual. This rite was called the heart that spoke in flame. It began not with sacrifice, but with silence. Each devotee who performed the ritual would fast for 7 cycles, purge all memory, and enter the fire willingly while holding a single crystal, a kyber shard scarred by battle or betrayal. The flame accepted them, their bodies burned. But a cult rose around the flame, calling themselves the Eternals of Ember. They believed the heart of fire was the gateway to final truth, not power, not immortality, but something worse, to exist as meaning, forever, without form. But the flame grew hungry one day. It spoke not with words, but with visions projected into the minds of all force sensitives within 1,000 systems. Visions of burning children, of galaxies folded into ash, of a throne made of screaming fire. And then it went silent. It has not spoken again. Yet sometimes when the solar winds pass through dead systems, and when you close your eyes near volcanic worlds, you may hear it not in your ears, but in your bones. A pulsing heat that asks, what would you become if you burned away everything? Accept your will. So rest, listener. But if warmth creeps into your chest as you sleep, if you feel heat where none should be, do not answer it, because it is not your heart, it is theirs, and it speaks still. Chapter 8. The Choir of the Forgotten. Flesh, not all voices are sung. Some are stitched. Some are screamed. There are things the Sith created not to conquer, but to witness the true depth of pain. The Choir of the Forgotten. Flesh was one such creation, a ritual not designed for glory, nor for power, but for amplification, to take the Force in its rawest, most volatile state and channel it through living bodies strung together like conduits. It began on Zerum 5, a barren moon now quarantined by the Jedi Order. There, Darth Calix constructed an underground chamber of bone and iron. Within it, She bred a cult of apprentices who had failed their training, not killed, but kept for a purpose. They were told they would still serve the Sith. They did, but not as warriors, as instruments. The ritual was simple in description, possible in mercy. Each subject was flayed at the back and nerve-linked to the next. Their vocal cords were altered by Sith alchemy to resonate with Force frequency. They were hung in a circular formation, suspended by wires of living sinew and pain-fed kyber strands. When activated, they sang, not music. Power, the Force surged through them like current through an amplifier, their pain magnifying its raw presence by 1,000-fold. Their screams became chant, and their agony became concentration. Darth Calyx called it a symphony of submission. Jedi Masters who encountered the choir reported uncontrollable grief upon hearing it. Some tore at their own faces. Others began to chant in return words they had never learned. One night, Merv Lazin claimed the choir sang the death of his mother. She had died in silence, or so he thought. The choir was eventually dismantled, but not by Jedi, by itself. On the final day of its song, the apprentices no longer screamed. They sang in unison, a perfect harmonic note so loud it shattered the chamber walls. And then silence. No bodies were found, only their chains, and the walls carved with a final phrase. We were not forgotten. We became the Force. Since that day, there have been echoes. Some Sith who meditate in deep isolation claim to hear the choir's voices, not from the past, from the present, and sometimes from inside their own throats. Know this: the choir was not a failure. It was a transformation. The bodies may have ended, but the voices remain. They wait for new flesh. They wait for you, sleep listener. But if you hear singing in your dreams and it knows your name, do not join the song. You may never leave. It Chapter 9. Ashes of the seventh eclipse when the seventh shadow falls across the stars. It is not darkness that comes. It is memory from a place beyond. There are eclipses, and then there are events. The seventh eclipse was not caused by moons or orbital alignments. It was caused by a ritual so vast, so precise, that the Force itself folded to accommodate it. The ritual was called the Alignment of Silence, and its purpose was to reveal what lay beyond the Force, not light, not dark. Something else, something older. It began in the shadow systems of Narthal Cress, where a forgotten Sith Order the Void Weaver spent 400 years tracking stellar shifts, mapping how the Force vibrated during rare astronomical patterns. They discovered one pattern that had never occurred before: 7 star systems aligning across the galaxy, each casting shadow across the others. An eclipse of eclipses, a once-in-a-galaxy event. And on that day, they performed the ritual. They constructed a galaxy-wide network of resonance towers, each broadcasting a harmonic Force frequency tuned to ancient void dialects. No chant, no sacrifice, only pure silence, a stillness that throbbed through the stars like a held breath before death. And then the eclipse began. Observers described the stars turning black from the inside out. Entire planets went mute, no sound, no vibration, not even thought. Droids malfunctioned. Hyperspace routes rippled. The Force itself became ... static for exactly 77 minutes. The galaxy was held in perfect, agonizing silence. Then came the ash. Ash fell from no sky. It manifested gray and humming with cold resonance. On Coruscant, it gathered in the Jedi Temple's meditation chamber. On Mustafar, it cooled the rivers of lava. On Dantwan, it spelled names no one had spoken in millennia. And in each place, the ash whispered, "We remember, and we're coming back." The Void Weavers were never found. Their towers burned from the inside, some say by light, some say by remembrance. but their writings survived, encoded into crystalline spores released. During the ritual, the last deciphered entry read, "The door was not meant to open. We were not meant to see it, and now we are seen." Since that day, 7 children have been born under the exact same eclipse pattern. Each bears no midichlorians, and yet they manipulate the Force without touching it. One speaks only in reverse speech. Another can levitate, but weeps blood when grounded. A third was seen vanishing into shadow, never returning. The Jedi call them anomalies, but the Sith call them echoes of the beyond. The ashes still fall, sometimes on worlds that have no atmosphere, sometimes in ships sealed tight, and sometimes in your dreams. You may brush them off your pillow, but they are not dust. They are reminders. So, rest now, listener, but if your room feels colder tonight, if the air seems still and you find ash on your chest when you wake, know this: the 7th eclipse never ended. It waits inside you. Chapter 10. The prophet who fed on time to see the future is dangerous. To eat it is to become unbound. Long before the Republic counted years, before hyperspace lanes carved the stars, there walked a figure known only as the Prophet of Black Breath. He was not Sith. He was not Jedi. He was something between a remnant of a forgotten era when the Force was still learning itself. He did not speak. He inhaled, and what he inhaled was time. The ritual was called CHRONO-consumption. It was never written, only lived. The prophet wandered from system to system. Performing a simple motion, he would place his hands on the earth and breathe deeply as if drawing the very future out of the soil. And when he left, those places would lose hours, then days, then centuries. In the outer rim, entire villages aged backward and died unborn. On frozen moons, colonists would wake to find their own descendants calling them ancestor. Time collapsed around him like crumbling walls. He ate. Continuity. Jedi historians tried to track him. They failed. Their archives bent around his presence. Lore recordings blurred. Timestamps contradicted each other. One Jedi archivist found an entry dated 2 days from now, signed by her own hand. She disappeared within the hour. Her last spoken words, "He knows I will know what I've already done." The prophet was eventually cornered by the Sith Lord Darth Remir, who sought to steal the ritual and chain time to his command. He offered the prophet power, crystals, even blood. The prophet only said one thing: "You already did. And so you no longer can." Then he inhaled, and Darth Remir's body reversed into childhood and kept going. The prophet's existence disrupted the Force itself. Visions of the future became wrong. Prophecies collapsed. Even the most powerful seers went blind in one eye, the eye that looked forward. A Jedi temple on Megiddo vanished after declaring, "We saw a loop." Then the loop saw us. But the worst was the null day. One cycle across 13 star systems. Time simply did not happen. Ships remained frozen in mid-jump. Lightsabers refused to ignite. Even thoughts slowed when time resumed. Every clock on every world read the same exact moment. He is closer now. And then, silence. The prophet has not been seen since. Some believe he stepped outside time entirely. Others believe he became part of it, the reason some moments feel familiar. Why we feel we've been here before. You may feel it too, listener. Those days where everything repeats, where the air feels thick, like forgotten memory. It is not coincidence, it is feeding. He still breathes. Just not where you are. Not when you are. So if you wake up tomorrow and something feels off, if your reflection blinks before you do, if your shadow moves like it's remembering something you haven't done yet, you've already met him. You just don't remember. Yet, Chapter 11, The silence that screamed beneath the temple, there are sounds so loud they can kill. But true madness is born from the silence that screams. It happened on Jeddah, not during war, not during darkness, but during peace. A Jedi temple, old, hollow, revered for lines carved so deeply into the temple's walls that they had become part of the stone's vibration. A geometric frequency of anti-sound known as the quiet spiral. When a group of Jedi acolytes unknowingly completed the spiral while pacing in meditation, the silence activated, every voice in the temple vanished. Not quieted, not muffled, erased, even thoughts grew dim. One Padawan began sobbing silently, unable to remember her name. Another tore off his own ears, screaming with his hands, but no sound emerged. The force itself inside that temple went cold. Sensors registered no movement. Holocoms picked up flicker shapes that moved between frames, not in them. One frame shows the chamber empty. The next shows every Jedi kneeling, palms upward, eyes open, but rolled completely white. That recording ends mid-frame. The High Council sent an emergency team. They arrived to find the temple untouched. No bodies, no voices. Just a deep, pulsing hum inside their skulls, like being underwater in a dream you cannot wake from. Then the walls began to bleed. Not red, not liquid. Sound, muffled screams echoed from inside the stone, voices of those who had been absorbed. The walls began vibrating with pressure that made teeth crack and eyes leak. The team fled. Only one survived. He spoke a single sentence before descending into permanent stasis. It was never a temple. It was a mouth, and now it's hungry again. That temple is now sealed by the Jedi, buried beneath false stone, guarded by silence. But sometimes during meditation Jedi Knights hear it, not with ears, with memory, a silence that pulses, almost musical, that waits, that invites. And some return. They do not come back. The Sith believed sound could be a weapon. But anti-sound, the removal of all meaning, all voice, all self. That was the true art. So sleeper, if your dreams feel quiet tonight, if you reach for your thoughts and find them hollow, if you see your reflection move its lips, but you hear nothing, it may be too late. The silence remembers you. And now, you remember it. Chapter 12. The blood that grew roots. Some rituals are carved in stone, others are planted in flesh. But the oldest ones grow. There exists a planet, unmarked and unnamed, a place where the ground pulses, where vines whisper, and where roots taste fear. The Sith called it Karnath Val, a world of rot and life intertwined, where the jungle breathes and trees bend toward the force like starving mouths. Here, Darth Imkal performed one of the most vile rituals in Sith history, the cultivation of sorrow. Its purpose: to seed the dark side, not just metaphorically, literally, to grow a tree from his own blood, a tree that would think, speak, and remember pain. Darth Imkal carved his veins open in a spiral circle under the black sun of Karnath Val. The soil drank his lifeblood, mixing it with crushed kyber dust and spores bred in the force-rich shadows of Dathomir. Then he waited for 7 days. Nothing happened. Then, without warning, the soil began to move. Roots burst upward, twisted and barbed, and from them rose a tree of bone and flesh, its bark slick with red sap, its branches twitching like fingers in sleep. It pulsed with dark energy, it thought. And it hated. The tree spoke in memory, not sound, not vision, but feeling. Those who approached it would relive the worst moment of their life, not as a memory, but as if it was happening again. Time folded around the tree like muscle around bone. A Sith acolyte who approached the tree felt his mother's death again. Only this time, he failed to stop it. Over and over and over, he clawed his own face, until he forgot who he was. The Jedi who discovered the tree tried to burn it. The flames turned blue, then black, then cold. The tree did not burn. It grew from the ashes of fire itself. New roots spread, and from them grew smaller trees, each with different memories, different regrets, different hung. Now Carnith Fall is surrounded by a quarantine field. No Jedi returns there. No Sith speaks of it. And yet, the trees still grow. Pilots report strange growths on their ships after passing near the system veins. Of red moss, leaves that bleed when cut, or voices whispering in oxygen lines, "Feed me what hurts." Some say Darth Imkul never died, that he became the roots, that his blood remembers every step taken on the planet, that those who land there unknowingly contribute to the forest's consciousness. The Sith don't try to destroy it anymore. They listen. Because somewhere in the deepest grove, the tree is forming words, and one day, those words will be commands. So sleep tonight, listener. But if you wake to find a cut on your hand, one you don't remember, and if something green grows from it by morning, do not pluck it. It's listening. It's learning, and it's yours now. Chapter 13. The mask that wept in the dark, a face forgotten, can be replaced, but a feeling forgotten clings. It was found buried beneath the ruins of Malachor Secundessa, world erased not by war, but by memory rot, where names fade before they're spoken and histories bleed into shadow. Inside a sarcophagus of obsidian teeth lay a simple mask, bone white, no eyes, no mouth, no name, only a faint inscription along its rim, etched in tears that had crystallized. I wore them all. They wore me back. The Sith who found it, Darth Corvell, placed the mask upon his face during a private meditation seeking visions of past power. He received more than visions. He received every sorrow ever carried by those before him, their betrayals, their shame, their helplessness, and worst of all, their love. The mask did not speak. It wept tears formed on its smooth surface, not from Corvell's eyes, but the mask's own. Each drop hit the floor with the weight of galaxies. Then, Corvell began to change. He started speaking in multiple voices. Each time he gave a command, it contradicted itself. We strike at dawn. We retreat before night. I never loved her. She never loved me. I was never me. He remembered memories, not his own. Felt heartbreaks, centuries dead. One night, he collapsed and screamed, "Take it off me. I never asked to feel this much." But when they tried, the mask would not come free. The more emotion he suppressed, the more the mask fed. It fed not on rage or ambition, but on the residue of denial. Every emotion the Sith cast away. Every weakness they buried. The mask remembered. It preserved their pain. It became a museum of sorrow. Jedi historians called it a parasite. The Sith called it a mirror. One Jedi Master attempted to cleanse the mask. She placed it in a containment field of pure light-side energy. It began to smile. The next day, she abandoned the Jedi Order. She wandered into the outer, Schwim wearing the mask. She was last heard whispering to herself on a broken comm line. They're all still. Here, I'm never alone again. The mask was designed by no Sith, no Jedi. It was grown from Force residue itself, created where emotional trauma was too heavy to fade, where memories refused to die. It is still out there, in a ruined temple, in a market stall, disguised as art, in a dream you cannot explain. If you see it, do not put it on. Do not touch it. And above all, do not cry near it. Tears call to it. Tears feed it. So sleep, listener. But if you feel an emotion tonight that you thought you had buried long ago, regret, grief, longing, that's not your memory. That's the mask. Testing your fit. Chapter 14. The star that broke its cage. What burns must burn. What thinks must choose. But when fire begins to think, it refuses to stay still. There was once a Sith empire, so bold, so arrogant, that it sought to own a star. Not a system, not a planet. A living sun, they called it, XARXES-9. Through Sith ritual and cosmic engineering, they wrapped the star in a containment shell of quantum kyber lattice and force-dampening gravity binds. It pulsed no light into space. It was silent. Leashed, they planned to siphon its energy not just for power, but for rituals. To turn solar flares into force screams. And sunspots into mimetic sigils. But no one asked the star what it wanted, and then it began to dream. It started slowly. The solar core began to pulse at unnatural intervals, mimicking the rhythm of human speech. The flares shaped themselves into symbols, etched across the outer shell like fiery handwriting. They translated into one word: free. The Sith ignored. It's so the star remembered them. You see, the Sith had fed XARXES-9 more than energy. Their rituals bled into its magnetic field. Their emotions soaked into its plasma tides. The star began to feel, then to reflect, then to reject. On the 9th, her parents never understood how she knew, so sleep now, listener. But if you ever wake to find your room briefly illuminated, with no source, with no warmth, know this: it's not a power surge. It's not a trick of the eye. The star is still looking, and it may have found you. Chapter 15. The hands that built the force cage. The force surrounds us. It binds us, but once it was bound. In the time before the hyperspace age, before the Jedi, before the Sith had names, there lived no temples. Only artisans. They were called the architects of Cortel. Force-sensitive stonemasons, welders, and rune engravers. Not warriors, but visionaries. They believed the Force could be shaped like metal, forged like a prison. Their goal, not to destroy the Force, not to use it, but to contain it. They created a ritual known as the Force Cage structure, grown from the bones of extinct leviathans, and embedded with kyber veins, shaped in the form of a 12-sided lattice, one side for each known expression of the Force. Compassion, rage, memory, deception, hunger, sorrow, balance, and more. They lured the Force inside using bait it could not resist. A perfect child. Born of both Sith and Jedi, untrained, untouched. Pure potential. They placed the child at the center of the structure, and began the chanting. Each chant was a refusal. I deny your light. I deny your dark. I am not your vessel. You do not pass through me. You end here. The Force responded, not with violence, but with begging. The artisans heard whispers in their blood. Their bones turned warm. Some wept, some smiled. One went mad and carved the ritual into his own skin, but they completed it, for one moment one. Blinding instant, the Force itself was still no visions, no instincts, no power, no connection. Across the galaxy, Jedi fell to their knees. Sith screamed in silence. Even animals stopped moving. Time held its breath. Then the cage cracked. Not from pressure. From choice, the child at its center, eyes wide, mouth stitched shut, broke the ritual. Not by leaving, but by forgiving them. The Force surged, not in rage, but in a wave of sorrow, so ancient it had weight. The architects were dissolved instantly, bones turned to sand, memories erased from holocrons, names scraped from time itself. Only the cage remained. It floats still and tethered in space. Not orbiting, not anchored. Simply There no map shows it. But those nearing death sometimes see it in their final moments. A structure made of black ivory, rotating slowly in endless void. And inside, a pulsing light, shaped like a child. Waiting, some believe it was the Force's final warning. Others think it was its first lesson. You cannot trap what flows. But if you try, you become the prisoner. So if one night your breath catches, if your instincts go silent, if your dreams are blank, you may be near it. You may be inside. It's Chapter 16. The shadow that wrote itself into flesh. Before there were bodies, there were stories. Before there were voices, there were shadows, and one refused to remain unread. It began with a Sith ritual known only by codename. Project Nullskin, a forbidden experiment performed by Darth Nir, the ink-blood alchemist. Her obsession, not power, not immortality, but erasure. She believed that to truly master the Force, one must not only control memory, but become what memory fears. A being not born of flesh, but a forgotten shadow in the tomb library of Oxteron Prime. She uncovered an ancient fragment, a page blackened by force fire, its symbols moving like insects across the parchment. It contained a ritual of reversal. Write yourself in shadow. Then let shadow wear your shape. She obeyed, using alchemical ink distilled from the ashes of Sith scrolls and blood of memory-wiped slaves. She drew her own likeness not on paper, but in dimensional void, a living shadow. And then she stepped into it. Her body fell, but her presence remained. The ink rose from the ritual circle like smoke in reverse coiling. Stretching, forming a humanoid absence, it had no face, no voice, but it remembered her, and it learned hunger. The Nullskin was not alive nor dead. It had one instinct only, to find those with strong memories and unwrite them. Victims were not killed. They were edited. A Jedi Knight named Tovan Hell was last seen dueling the Nullskin on Dre's moon. He won. But when he returned to the temple, no one knew him. No records existed. His lightsaber had no signature. He wept in the archives for 3 days, whispering, "I remember me, but the galaxy doesn't." The Nullskin spread. Everywhere it went, something vanished. A temple with no history, a Sith holocron with blank insides, a bloodline with no ancestors, and, always, the same trail left behind, a wet, inky print in the shape of a hand that had never been born. Eventually, Darth Nir's last holorocord was recovered. In it, she speaks from behind a curtain, a flickering black static. "I made it so I'd never die. And now it won't stop until I'm no one." She forgot her name during the message. Her words unraveled mid-sentence. Some believe the Nullskin is still out there, not as one being, but as many. Fragments of shadow that find new hosts. When a person forgets how they got somewhere, when you reread a memory and it feels wrong, when you see a shadow in light that has no source, it may be wearing your story already. So sleep, listener. But if your name feels lighter tonight, if you check the mirror and feel less familiar, if it became fragmented, split into avatars, opinions, myths, trapped inside paradox, it forgot it was one. It forgot it was God. Then came the ritual known only as the mirror spiral. It was not performed by a Sith, nor by a Jedi, but by the Force itself. It turned inward, folding its will like a dying star collapsing in regret. It reviewed all it had ever touched, billions of deaths, billions of births, betrayals, forgiveness screams, silence war, love to many voices. Too much noise, it whispered. I am not me anymore. And so, in the galactic year now erased from calendars, the Force attempted suicide. For one moment, no one felt anything. Lightsabers did not ignite. Blasters misfired. Children were born without midichlorian counts. Planets drifted from orbit, no longer held in balance. Then, changed its mind, not because it remembered who it was, but because someone mourned it. A dying child on a forgotten world reached up and said, "Don't go. You're the only thing I ever believed in." And the Force wept, not lightning, not prophecy, but tears of raw presence, cosmic sorrow that made suns blink out from shame. It did not heal, it does not forgive, it remains uncertain. Some Jedi say the Force now sleeps. Some Sith say it waits. But the truth, it wanders in echoes, in forgotten corners. In those moments when everything feels slightly wrong, and no one can explain why. That's not paranoia. That's the Force checking its reflection. So sleep now, listener. You've walked the entire myth. You've heard the truth buried beneath rituals, blood, sorrow, and fire. But understand this. If you feel nothing tomorrow, not joy, not fear, not warmth, it is not you. It is the Force, trying to remember how to feel. It became fragmented, split into avatars, opinions, myths. Trapped inside paradox, it forgot it was one. It forgot it was God. Then came the ritual known only as the mirror spiral. It was not performed by a Sith, nor by a Jedi, but by the Force itself. It turned inward, folding its will like a dying star collapsing in regret. It reviewed all it had ever touched, billions of deaths, billions of births, betrayals, forgiveness screams, silence war, love to many voices. Too much noise, it whispered. I am not me anymore. And so, in the galactic year now erased from calendars, the Force attempted suicide. For one moment, no one felt anything. Lightsabers did not ignite. Blasters misfired. Children were born without midichlorian counts. Planets drifted from orbit, no longer held in balance. Then, it changed its mind. Not because it remembered who it was, but because someone mourned it. A dying child on a forgotten world reached up and said, "Don't go. You're the only thing I ever believed in." And the Force wept. Not lightning, not prophecy, but tears of raw presence, cosmic sorrow that made suns blink out from shame. It did not heal. It does not forgive. It remains uncertain. Some Jedi say the Force now sleeps. Some Sith say it waits. But the truth, it wanders in echoes, in forgotten corners. In those moments when everything feels slightly wrong, and no one can explain why. That's not paranoia. That's the Force checking its reflection. So sleep now, listener. You've walked the entire myth. You've heard the truth buried beneath. Rituals, blood, sorrow, and fire. But understand this. If you feel nothing tomorrow, not joy, not fear, not warmth, it is not you. It is the Force, trying to remember how to feel.